Good afternoon and welcome to the special edition of In-Depth School and Community, a monthly show that features topical issues confronting our schools here in SAU 70 and the Upper Valley in general. We have a really exciting show in front of us today. I have three special guests. To my left is Ms. Jen Quevedo. Jen is our wellness coordinator as well as being a phys ed teacher at the high school and the K-12 curriculum coordinator for physical education. Next to her is a very special guest, Dr. Christine Medora, who is a family practitioner here in the Hanover area. Many of the students and parents who come to our schools happen to have her as their family doctor. And next to her, rounding out our distinguished panel, is our principal of Richmond Middle School, Mr. Mike Rapine. Thanks, Mike, for hosting us here at the
My pleasure. Welcome.
RMS. It's great. The reason we're here talking to everyone today is to give the results of the 10-week administrative wellness challenge that Jen kind of put together for us here. And so why don't we start with Jen. Talk to us, Jen, about this program, what you envisioned when you first put it together and how it's turned out so far.
The idea was to try and get people thinking about fairly simple things they could do on a daily basis that would have a big impact, and keeping that wellness initiative for themselves as well as for role modeling in their day-to-day life and thought process. So we wanted to look at sleeping patterns. How are people eating? How often are they exercising? Are they doing things to manage their stress? And we wanted to reward those good behaviors. So we kind of figured out some point systems and put together some incentives. And I know you're thinking of some rewards as well. And people have been great. We did 10 full weeks, and people stuck with the whole 10 weeks. It was really wonderful.
So you had people submitting information to you on a weekly basis. I believe you put together a sort of a survey, and you asked us to respond to certain questions about our sleep and about fruits and vegetables and time out for stress management, actual courses we might have taken, in addition to our physical education opportunities, correct?
Exactly. Yes.
So let me switch to Dr. Medora. So, a lot of us, Dr. Medora, have this sort of notion that, if I just do, 50 push-ups a day and sit-ups and run a mile, I'm going to be all set. And there's this, in a sense, misunderstanding about, the physical activity, that's the name of the game, and obviously there's so much more to this.
Well, I think that, you use the term physical activity, which I think is great to differentiate. And kind of looking over some things, preparing for this, it's important to differentiate the difference between physical activity and exercise.
Yes.
And both are important, and both are things we don't do enough of in the U.S. and in many places in the world, particularly developed countries. But the difference, physical activity you think of as the sort of things you do day to day, which can include anything like walking around. A lot of people follow their steps with work, now with Fitbits and everything and pedometers. So it's what you do day to day in your job, what you do in your home, cleaning your house, mowing the lawn. These things are all examples of physical activity.
Sure.
Whereas exercise, at least medically, we would think of it as something you plan, something that's repeated, something that's more vigorous and is designed specifically to get the heart rate up and to work you physically a little bit more. So being physically active is important, and exercising is important.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly, in the 2008 physical guidelines for Americans recommended about 150 minutes a week of physical activity for an individual, or of moderate physical activity, or 75 minutes a week of vigorous physical activity. And the survey at the time showed that 56% of respondents reported that they were not meeting that.
Right.
So it's something that we don't get enough of, and that's why this program was fantastic to kind of get people motivated to think more about it.
Yeah, thank you. Now, Mike, speaking of vigorous activity, I know you really took this program very seriously, and you've been involved in a lot of physical exercise. It's a program for you. Talk to us a little bit about what you do for like a daily regimen.
Sure. Well, and I really appreciate the distinction between physical activity and exercise, and I think that's part of the conversation that a lot of us have had around where do we need to put a focus, or where might we be able to adjust our daily routine to accomplish both of those things. So for me, having something like a Fitbit or a step tracker as a measure has really been a helpful way for us to assess whether we're being successful. But something as simple as before hitting send, after writing an email, deciding could I walk down to the other end of the building and say what I just wrote. And 9 times out of 10 you can.
Yeah.
And so that's a way to sort of up my physical activity on a daily basis by just asking myself that simple question every time I'm about to hit send. And for me, with 2,000 sent emails a month plus, that there's a lot of opportunity to get some physical activity. So that's one piece. I think looking at our daily routines and finding those opportunities to inject a little more activity. There's a whole group of staff here who have put standing desks in place, have created opportunities to have walking meetings, have looked at ways in which they're modeling physical activity for their kids. Are there things that we could do in the classroom to be more active, regardless of what I teach?
Right.
And not only do we know that engages kids more, we're also at the same time modeling and practicing that aspect of physical activity.
No, that's excellent. You seem to be talking about habits of mind, changing the way we approach our daily activities or our daily life. So talk to us a little bit more about how it's changed you personally in terms of your habits of mind.
Well, sure. So for me, exercise is something that I've used to work on stress and other things for a long time, and it's been a part of my program through running and doing morning basketball with kids and open gym and those kinds of things. So for me, some of the other aspects were areas of focus, and that's where I like that Jen created a program where we could individualize. So for me, fruits and vegetables and water are two things that generally aren't part of my week. So,
Exactly.
and so having a system by which we were talking about that and encouraging each other, and even having students encourage us once they figured out what we were trying to do, has really changed that ritual part of my week.
Sure.
And so I have a water bottle I take everywhere with me. That's not something I've ever done. And so I think being able to make some of those behavioral changes and create those new routines through 10 weeks, it was long enough that it started to become established, has helped me. Now, staying with that is something I'll have to work at.
Right, great.
And maybe we'll talk a little bit more about next steps. But,
Sure.
But so for me, those were some areas that have really helped.
Yeah. Now, Jen, for you, you're the director of the program, but you're also a participant. So what has the program meant for you in both those phases, if you will?
Similarly, it's a great opportunity for me to reflect on what I think. I am somebody who carries a water bottle all the time, but my first observation was I don't refill it. So it's my carry along, my little safety blanket, but I wasn't drinking it. So really making a point of it every time I walk by a water fountain. Should I be filling this? I should be, but I'm not. I need to drink more water. And then, so for me, I definitely had those moments and the accountability about things like sleeping and making sure that I am walking the walk. The other side, though, is the person administering this was getting so much great feedback. And I think a lot of people at first were nervous to tell me where they were noticing their shortcomings, but they quickly relaxed and got right into it. And then we were able to give out different kinds of support from things people said. Somebody said, I got a glass water bottle. Now I can drink. I was like, oh, we should share this. Some people like to squeeze the water bottle and feel the progress. Other people can't stand plastic and don't want to touch it. It's tacky. So creating a community of conversation and role modeling and behavior norming.
Sure.
This is happening all around us.
Yeah, that's great. Dr. Medora, we talked about this sort of informally, but this, you are what you eat. Talk to us about, Jen made a big deal of this. So, so many fruits and vegetables, making sure you had proper portions, eating 3 meals a day, all of that. And some of us sort of nod our heads and go, yeah. If I get one good meal a day, it's good enough, right? And I think the answer is no. Obviously, again, that notion of you are what you eat is a big deal. And we need to spend a little bit more time, I think, as individuals in terms of looking at what our daily regimen of food intake is and how we go about getting our meals.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things I spend probably much of my time talking to my patients about in the office, and my background in terms of primary care is that I'm an internist, and so one of the things that excited me about this so much is that I deal with adults. And I think the school is a place where, of course, we talk about the health of kids, and we talk about obesity in kids, and these are absolutely critical. But the community really looks to the school as kind of a focal point. So what I really liked about the program is that it actually focused on the adults in the school as well, and the administrators and the school board and the principals, of course, and anyone who could participate. So I spend a lot of time talking to my patients about what they eat. It doesn't help a whole lot to say to somebody, well, how's your diet? That's what usually this opening line is. How's your diet?
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
almost always the answer. Pretty good.
Yeah.
And then you ask somebody how much they exercise, often the answer is not as much as I should, which is usually means none. So when you ask somebody how they eat and they say pretty well, what really helps is to say, what'd you eat yesterday?
Yeah.
and to go through, and you probably, definitely
Yep.
experienced this. Tell me what you ate,
Mhm.
and it's amazing how many of us don't get 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. And so when you ate people, they ate some cereal for breakfast, and then they ate a ham and cheese sandwich for lunch with some pretzels, and you realize they're actually, the kid may leave the apple behind in the lunchbox, and so many of us aren't getting enough fruits and vegetables. And so thinking about it, your point in being very, eating well and exercising takes a lot of time and a
Mhm.
lot of thought, and that's
Right.
one of the barriers to doing it.
Mhm.
Although there are lots of ways you can simplify it, but thinking ahead, planning what you're going to eat for lunch, eating 3 meals a day. I think it very much depends a little bit on the person, but the key to it is that people don't get over hungry. And
Right.
we all know that when we're starving and we've skipped 2 meals and you
Yeah.
get to the cafeteria, that the pizza looks a lot better than the salad, right? Because it's fast and you want to eat it. So planning ahead, not
Uh-huh.
getting overly hungry.
Right.
And food journaling is one of the things we really recommend to patients either who are trying to lose weight
Uh-huh.
or eat healthier, because if you don't write it down, you tend to ignore the cookie you had at lunchtime,
Right.
and you tend just to say, well, it was only one, so I'm not going to add that in.
Right.
So food journaling can really help people know what they're eating,
Uh-huh.
planning ahead, writing down when they're going to eat fruits and vegetables and get them, and so all those things are
Sure.
critical.
So, Mike and I had this conversation, so I'll ask you the same question. So, we talked about the exercise, and both of us try to look at the exercise in terms of a quality exercise, whether it's you're running a 5K or elliptical or swimming or what have you. And so, as you've talked about before, getting the heart rate up and, doing some intervals so you have a,
Right.
a balance and doing it at least 15 to 20 minutes, every day. So let's assume that we're really diligent about that. But the flip side of that whole argument is, so we say, yeah, we've done all that, but we have our jobs and our lives, and we're so busy, and gosh, we're only getting like 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night.
Mhm.
So talk to us about that.
Right. Well, and to say that too, I think it's important to realize that any exercise is good exercise, and exercise counseling is very individualized, and you
Mhm.
have to be so in the office. You have to be very aware of what people's resources are, where they are socioeconomically, what they can afford to do,
Right.
whether they do shift work. You have to be realistic about expectations for exercise, and just again get into the mindset where any exercise is good exercise, any physical activity. But you're right. The other thing that was really great about this program is it was comprehensive, and so when you add in other health issues like sleep, so it's very clear that getting the right amount of sleep is beneficial from a health standpoint. But we see that individuals who are chronically sleep deprived have higher levels of inflammatory markers, like something called CRP, and markers of inflammation, which can be possibly a surrogate for things like increased risk of cardiovascular disease. We know that there's a tendency towards an immune deficiency in individuals who are chronically sleep deprived. So there actually is a study that showed that individuals who received the flu vaccine and were sleep deprived for 6 days following vaccination had a decreased response to the flu vaccination, and likely a trend towards more frequently getting viral upper respiratory infections or the common cold in people who are sleep deprived.
Sure.
So it's very critical to get enough sleep. And what's enough sleep? It really depends on the individual. So we tend to say 7 to 8 hours, but it's very individual. And for some people it might be 10, and for some people it might be 5 to 6.
Sure.
But generally speaking, most people feel good with 7 to 8 hours of sleep.
Let's stay with the immune system for a
Yeah.
second, because again, Mike and Jen and I were having this conversation. So we've all said we've got to bounce in our stat because of doing
Right.
the program, and again, it's a comprehensive program, not just the exercise. And we've all said, gee, no colds this year. I think I was teasing you about that. No colds, no flu. So obviously the program is doing it. Clearly, that's only a small portion of it. We understand that, but I think there's another underlying issue here, and that is, does all of this that we're doing actually fire up the immune system? Is it like giving a health benefit to the immune system? And I know I'm going off on a limb here.
No, absolutely, not at all. I mean, what I haven't said is, so what are the benefits of doing all this? And so sleep, for sure, impacts the immune system. Eating healthily, fruits and vegetables, of course, we all hear the terms like antioxidants, and those are going to be high in antioxidants. So eating a diet that's high in fruits and vegetables and fiber may also, actually, we may see a decrease in inflammatory markers on people who eat a diet that's high in fiber. The American diet is very fiber poor, so all of those bready sort of things like hamburgers and pizza and that stuff is very low in fiber content. Fiber plays a role in the immune system, and certainly exercise as well. And again, decreasing immune markers, inflammatory markers, it all has a significant impact. And what we definitely see, I mean, the overriding theme here is that there's solid evidence that physical activity and regular exercise decrease what's called all-cause mortality. So people who do this regularly just have a lower mortality rate from all causes than people who don't.
Yeah.
It decreases the risk of cardiovascular disease,
Mhm.
of potentially Alzheimer's disease and
Right.
cognitive issues, of certain kinds of cancers. And you can look across all of the things I was looking at before this, healthy diet, exercise, and sleep will all play a role in these risks, somewhat related to obesity, but also independently.
Sure. So again, the obesity thing piques my curiosity. So the three of us again have been talking, and so for us, the weight loss isn't that big of a deal. So maybe I lost 4 or 5 pounds, Jen lost 1 or 2, and Mikey didn't lose any.
Yeah.
So I mean, the weight loss again, it's like preeminent in people's minds. Oh, I can lose 7 pounds or 10 pounds, and that's a good thing, but that shouldn't necessarily be the overriding issue here. And the weight loss is again only a small part of it, right?
It's not the be-all, end-all. It's part of it, and it obviously depends on the person. So
Yeah.
someone who's going into the program either with overweight or obesity, their health is also tied to that, but it's not necessarily a direct risk factor in developing things like cardiovascular disease, but it is either directly or certainly indirectly with increasing risk of diabetes, increasing risk of elevated blood pressure,
Sure.
and all of these risk factors that play into diabetes. So there's independent impacts like physical activity. We know decreases what's called glycemic index, which means the tendency towards high blood sugars. We know that exercise in itself decreases systemic blood pressure, so improves hypertension, it decreases risk of it, and so on. But also the added benefit of decreasing the likelihood of becoming obese or overweight also has a positive impact on those things.
Right. I think the other thing too to look at, and the others can chime in too as well, is your sense about stress has changed. So all three of us are constantly bombarded with a variety of issues on a daily basis, and then we get home, there's a whole other series of issues. And so our ability to handle those in a more effective and comprehensive manner seems to have increased as a result of the program. So in other words, your ability to deal with stress, your ability to deal with the unknown, you're now thrown into a chaotic situation, which happens to you a lot. Your ability to respond to that seems to be better. You're able to manage the stress better. You feel you have more resiliency. You have more sense of control over what's happening to you.
I think it all connects, obviously. But so for me, thinking back to when you were just talking about staying healthy and all the
Yeah.
different connections to the aspects, that was a big goal for me, looking more holistically at my own wellness, because I was finding myself regularly sick. And I think when you're a teacher, thinking back to when I was in that role or when I was a principal, you really don't want to miss school. It's more work to not be with your kids.
Yes.
No matter how good the substitute is, it's not the same.
True.
And teachers hate to be out sick.
Yes.
And so any aspect of wellness that might influence our ability either to avoid getting sick or even more so to bounce back quickly is going to have a tremendous value for all of us who work in schools and certainly other places.
Yeah.
So I think listening to those things that you listed and then thinking myself about the connection between stress and wellness and in terms of ability to fight infection or be well, and then linking that to when I participate in the things I enjoy to reduce stress. The morning basketball I mentioned is a big piece for me. When I start my day that way, I tend to have a better day. And those things that maybe I was stressed about on the way in are sort of much more comfortable to handle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or when I have the opportunity to get that run in before going home from work, I tend to think through all those things at work, and then
Yes.
it's all set.
Right.
I go home
Right.
with a fresh
Sure.
mind, and I'm in a better place. And I really feel like all those things combined with the sleep and the wellness piece with the eating, combined to put me in a better position to move through health in a healthy way.
No, that's a good point. How does that work for you?
I agree, and I would build from it that I think maybe a secondary or even tertiary benefit to taking ownership of your well-being is that you give yourself permission to take breaks during the day, to take care of yourself and prioritize yourself, and in all of those areas. So when you are in a rush and you think, oh, I'll just grab some junk food or whatever from the cafeteria, I'll grab the quick, easy grab, and you think, no, I've committed to this for 10 weeks,
Yeah.
I'm going to do this. Then you don't feel physically unhealthy and you feel like you've rewarded yourself, you've taken care of yourself. And I think we can become addicted to our own adrenaline and to that competitive, I need to be busy all the time, this is how I know I'm important in my community, and we neglect to give ourselves credit and take care of ourselves. So something like this that says this is what's asked of you by your school board, by the superintendent, by the principals. We're asking you to take care of yourself. We can individually not only role model great
Sure.
behaviors, but allow ourselves to take care of ourselves.
You know,
That's
it's an
what I
excellent point. It reminds me of a conversation we had with Matt Slaughter in a Tuck program, where he said, I don't care how busy you are, you got to carve out at least 10 minutes every day. You close the door, put your feet up on the desk and say, what if? How about this? How about that? And some of us are so driven by the schedule. Oh, if I have all these appointments during the day, then I must be busy and I must be accomplishing something. But you end up on a treadmill, and you're sort of, in a sense, running in circles, running from one meeting to the next meeting and making sure that you've got all these things covered, when in reality you end up sort of juggling balls and you get yourself crazy.
Mhm.
So when you
Right.
do have the time to just slow down, give some thought, I should be saying that, right, slow down, but give some thought to things, it certainly gives you a fresher perspective and gives you a chance to kind of see the big picture. And something that Mike and I have, really tried to make, part of our daily practice. You were going to say something?
Oh no, I think that's what I was going to say. The unhealthy figurative treadmill, if it could only be. But there are some there's some stuff out there about the sit, stand, desks help and all this stuff. Employers have certainly moved in the direction, I think, of supporting physical activity, both from the standpoint of improving their own bottom line, from, especially self-insured companies, because then they have less illness on the job. Just like you were saying, lost work days to illness. This is a super motivated, crowd here. So it's kind of, I think if you were all in my office, it'd be easy to motivate. I think there are also a lot of individuals who come from backgrounds where they don't grow up necessarily with a culture of exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where it's so important to introduce the whole idea of being physically active early in life.
Mm-hmm.
And especially, of course, with the trends we've seen in the last decades in the
Mhm.
States with increasing obesity rates and sedentary lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And so making it just part of the norm, part of
Yeah.
the culture, to be
Sure.
active, and whether it's a little bit here and there, which is what everybody always talks about, walking from the car. My office is less than a mile away, and I almost got in my car and drove, and I realized it's like, I should walk. It's just that mindset, as you
Sure.
said, of having a very busy life. So
Mhm.
scheduling it is important,
Mhm.
and no matter how somebody starts out with just simple walking,
Sure.
usually it's one of the easiest things to do, because you can
Right.
buy a pair of running shoes and go out for a walk or go out for
Right.
a run. But it's really whatever fits your lifestyle, but scheduling it in.
Right.
And I think one of the things with this program that was really positive that we know is when you're doing something as part of a group, it can be that much easier to stay committed and motivated. And so to be here, having a variety of wellness challenges this year, and have a community that's encouraging, even teasing sometimes a little
Yeah.
bit, but just making it fun,
Yeah.
I think has made it easier to stick with it.
Yeah. No, agreed. Jen, where do we go from here?
Where do we go from here? Well, the challenges have been really well received,
Uh-huh.
and there have been a variety, and so I think people are enjoying that, and they're liking the feedback,
Mhm.
that creating that community of this is us. So it's springtime. Let's get outside. Let's keep finding things to do. We know we've got our Pilates and boot camp coming up. They're getting their spring sessions getting going soon, so we've got those opportunities right here within our own buildings. And lots of other things. I think there are definitely at the high school, and I think in some of the other buildings, people looking to start walking clubs
Mm-hmm.
after
we have
school,
some.
before school. So getting that organized will be a great thing to do too.
Great. Can you talk to me about, as the program develops more, and I know we've had people using this building as other buildings too for Pilates and Zumbas and all those kinds of things. How much of the faculty has tried to say to you, like, oh gee, is there something going on here or something going on at the high school, as opposed to, oh, I'm going home, or I have time to go to the gym, I don't know.
Well, I think just recently we had a district-wide wellness event here that Jen organized with people from all over the community.
Yeah.
Two things came from that. People became more aware of what's out there,
Mhm.
and then also had a chance to talk together about, let's do this as a group, or maybe we could do something like that, or maybe we should start a walking group, which one did.
That's outstanding.
So I think just as people become used to talking about this and more aware of the opportunities, it obviously improves building climate anyway, because we're strengthening those relationships. But then also, I think people are finding that it's really easy to access all these different opportunities out there and have a support group within our own building.
Yeah, to use your phrase, community of learners. We're all a community of learners, and the more that we can share with each other about what we're doing, and as you said, to commiserate as well as to cooperate with each other in terms of the programs or the outlooks that we take relative to wellness or anything that we do actually, is very helpful, because then you get that reciprocal satisfaction from hearing from other folks about how they're doing and some of the challenges that they face. And it makes you feel better about some of the challenges that you face. So it's not all about you per se and the individual struggles that you have, but when you can unite that with a large group effort, you get a lot of strength, support in wanting to continue to do that. I think that's where you come in a big way, because what Jen has done for our viewers, at least, you keep sending out, the surveys. It would be very easy for Mike and I as participants to say, okay, we're doing the program, we keep our own notes, but we're not going anywhere with it. By you forcing us to respond on a weekly basis, you're able to collect all the information. We're not worried, but we want to make sure that we're dutiful in following what you've prescribed for us to do. So I think that's another nice incentive. And then now you're in a position to be able to sit back and say, based upon the results that I have from all the participants, it seems to me that we should be doing A, B, or C. And I think obviously, what we've all learned from this 10-week program is it's really a wonderful thing. We should be doing more of it. We should try to get more people involved. And it should be a group thing in the sense that it's a conversation piece. And it's about habits of mind and how we approach each day. And it makes us better at what we do. And it makes the students better, chipper, less likely to be absent. I mean, so there's just so many spin-off benefits from this whole program. I know we're getting close to the end of the show here, so how about some final thoughts, Jen?
I think final thoughts. I'd like to see these programs continue to grow, maybe even into gardening, and then having that food be back into our school systems, and really keep that holistic piece. There's that physical activity, there's ownership of work. So love to keep collecting ideas, and I get emails periodically, so I encourage people to send ideas, and we'll keep pecking away at it.
You got a lot, speaking of emails, you got a lot of commentary from the folks. I mean, outside school, correct?
Yes.
That's really great. And again, for our viewers, we'd love to have more of the community be a part of this. It's again, back to Mike's term, we are all a community of learners, and the more that the towns of Hanover and Norwich participate in this as parents or as just fellow citizens, I think it's great. It's great for everybody. Mike?
I think where we're going, we mentioned this somewhat, is to do this with students.
Yeah.
Because then it's not just modeling by watch us, it's do it with us. And I think then it really becomes part of what we do and part of their education.
Right. Dr. Medora?
Yeah, I love that idea too. I mean, I think that's it, is how we engage the kids and parents together, often to be active together, and also, eat healthy, start it from the beginning, and how you expand it if possible to the community, because I think there was real interest and could be real interest in the program. And so from my perspective, the more people who are doing it and tracking this kind of thing, the better.
Sure. I mean, this was not the purpose behind the program, but one of the side benefits that Jen and I have talked about, and certainly John Aubin, our business administrator, is as our incidents go down in terms of context to people like you, as that number goes down, then a premium that we pay for our insurance also goes down. So John Aubin has been working very closely with our insurance broker, if you will, and making sure that they're acutely aware of all the things that we're doing. I think you work with them too as well. And that's been very helpful. And so the more that this program expands and incorporates more and more people, the more likely our incidence level will go down, and the more likely our premiums will go down. So actually the taxpayer benefits from this in the long run. So there's a lot of benefits for the program.
Right.
I know we're kind of running out of time here. I want to thank our special guests for coming in for this program. Jen, we look forward to other such venues that you're going to bring to us. This is really a great start, and we would like to continue. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be a part of the Wellness Fair, but I'm talking to Mike. It was really well received, and I think our folks are very interested in seeing the variety of opportunities available to them here on site at the schools, as opposed to being forced to go to your home gym or something like that. So thank you very much, and we appreciate everyone's opportunity to participate.
Thank you.
Thank you.